Hey everybody, I wanted to do a quick technical breakdown video on what I kind of consider an ideal type of touch landing with Viking Sword and Shield. So really what we're tending to go for in our training. This was about 3 years ago, so we made some tweaks since then, but the basic principles of what we use haven't really changed, just some of the application has, or as we get a little bit more skilled at it. So no touch was landed there. And there we have it.
One more.
So here's a slow-mo version of it. So feint at the leg, come back, cut at the head, and pass forward. And so you might be asking what's so ideal about that. Well, from the beginning here, what you end up seeing is we're at a good distance from each other. So we're at kind of an advanced lunge range. It's not going to be very simple to hit each other. And so I start with some feints, some opening feints. See if I can draw a reaction. And he doesn't really budge with it, maybe a tad as he's preparing to attack. And he ends up going for something because of the feint. So the feint towards the inside line kind of exposes the outside of my head. So he goes for a direct attack, trying to catch my sword with opposition. And I end up just getting it in the way here and moving back. So that was the key. As he moves forward, I move back so he's not at a range that he can hit me. If I were to let him press forward, he might have snuck through a little bit. But even that's not really something you see a ton of in sword and shield fighting. So it's really the same principles as single sword fighting. If somebody's attacking you and getting forward, it's best for your, in an ideal world, it's best for their point not to be more than a few inches past your guard that's going up. Any deeper than that and they can grab opposition on you, and it just makes for a cleaner distance for you to stop their attack and come forward. You don't want to be crashing into each other or too close, because the chances of doubles go up exponentially as soon as you're at that range. So there you can see he goes for a rising cut underneath, which I parry by dropping the shield a little bit, catching it on the edge. And what's neat about this is even if you over parry a little bit, so I slightly over parried there, the other edge of the shield protects you as it goes flat. So those are actually that's a perfectly good position to get in. And then he kind of punches his shield forward. I raise my shield back up, feint at him, and then he goes for my leg. So that's the other thing, is that even with my shield high like it is there, I don't always have to parry the leg. I was slightly blinded for a second. It would have been good if he took advantage of that, but he goes for the leg a little too late. I'm able to see it and slip forward. Then I follow him forward, and as he attacks me, I attempt a thrust with opposition there. It ends up failing. So he's hard to hit. He goes for it. No damage done on either end. And then from here, I take a slow approach. So here's the key here is rhythm change. So I change into a slower speed because I want him to react. And there you can see I get a good reaction on that high parry. And so I'm able to, what I do is kind of put him in an awkward position where I draw him out of the guard. So there's a high cut and he way overreacts there. And I see now, okay, as I'm pressing forward, I do that with a step. And so it makes it look more like a real attack. He's overreacting here. From there, I feint at the leg with a step forward and cut through. So it's a very slight kind of cut through, boom, here. And then I'm going to attack him with a step followed by a pass. So it ends up being a massive chop there. So I'm not even trying to hit hard. I'm actually trying to be gentle on him. But just with a little finger squeeze, that's a serious cut. And that's me holding back. So I think that sums up all the ways that the sword and shield should really be used. It's really all about feinting. That's a big thing. And you also want your weapons to be in absence. You don't want them to be in presence. You don't want the other person to try and control them. This is a completely different game than what you typically see played with Viking Sword and Shield, which is, for whatever reason, it's become popular, sticking the shield out to bind and trying to bind with the swords. This game that I'm playing here happens from farther away. So before they'd even get a chance to extend and grab a bind, this is from farther away, and it's a feint game. You're trying to get them to react to a very fast attack. And that's one of the reasons why I think that the way that Sword and Shield is being played right now, other than my personal experiences, it kind of falls apart when you put it against something like what we're doing here, which is more of a distance game, more of a feint game. There's direct attacks, there's counter attacks, there's footwork, but it's very much still a distance game, and it follows all the principles of fencing. So in order for him, the opponent, to get some sort of bind on us, to try to control our shield, they have to pass through my phase, my distance. That's where we're starting, which is the feint game, visual cues and not feeling. And that's a very dangerous place for people that are not used to that, right? So this has a massive advantage. And I think this is definitely backed up by living traditions. If you look at, again, I mentioned Tuareg stuff. There's also a lot of Zulu stick fighting, right? And what you typically see with weapons like this is people hanging back, trying to get a reaction of a feint. And like really there's errors that people make. So you need to be patient for errors. There's a couple times here where we thought we could get something, but because both of us were decent fencers, we kept the distance far enough away that nobody was hurt until there was a gross error at the end that I was able to take advantage of. So never forget that preparation phase. It's super important. The preparation phase, feeling the opponent out, stepping in and out of distance where you're safe, where you're actually safe, right? And then not entering until you have an advantage. The buying game is not entering with an advantage. You're not entering with an advantage. You're entering almost at a neutral position into the danger zone, and that's not a good thing. It's better to have everything stacked up against your opponent. And in future bouts, we'll take a look at another way to get that, which is through angles and footwork and a little bit of traversing. But here we're mostly focusing on like feints, distance errors, and timing errors.